We have the distinct honor of celebrating our growing club today with the induction of some new members. So I'm going to call on our membership chair, David Pitchford, and again, Mark Hollowell, I think is going to help out with this, and I'll let you guys call our new members forward for their induction today. Dave, Mark? Yeah. Mari's got it. All right.
Well, good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Today we have the privilege of welcoming 3 new members into our Rotary family. Joining a Rotary Club is more than just becoming part of an organization. It is an opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals dedicated to service, fellowship, and making a positive impact in our community and the world. Would the 3 members come up now? Sabra Hitchcock, Robert Calabrese, and Stuart Bilski. And of course, Dave. A short one? Rob is not with us. Okay. Now I got to rewrite this. Okay. Sabra and Stuart, by joining the Rotary Club of Dunedin, you're becoming part of a global network of leaders united in the mission to provide humanitarian service, uphold high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace. We believe you share these values and will contribute your skills, passion, and the energy to our efforts. Before we proceed, no, I'm sorry, we're going to skip over that. Don't have the people. Saba, Robert, and Stuart, as Rotarians, you'll have the chance to engage in service projects, build lasting friendships, and grow as a leader. In return, we ask that you embrace the spirit of Rotary by participating actively in sharing your ideas and upholding our guiding principles, including the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And just as valuable is our Rotary motto, which is service above self. Do you, Sabra and Stuart, pledge to embody these values and contribute to the mission of Rotary Club of Dunedin to the best of your ability? That's wonderful. It's now my pleasure to officially welcome you into our club. Please, I guess we only have one sponsor, but let's go ahead and pin them now. And as a little bonus, Sabra got her coin earlier. That's the 4-way test and the motto on coin. Carry it with you. So Sabra and Stuart, we encourage you to connect with your fellow Rotarians, seek guidance from your sponsor, and get involved in our committees and projects. You're now part of something bigger, a worldwide community of service and fellowship. Fellow Rotarians, please join me in extending the right hand of Rotary Fellowship by giving a warm welcome to our newest members, Sabra and Stewart. Thank you.
And welcome to Sabra and Stewart. Now I want to move on to our speaker for today. It is my particular delight to welcome my friend and a member of my congregation, Dr. Robin Rose. She is speaking today to us about what she learned from Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Mohandas Gandhi, about nonviolence. But a little bit about Robin. Robin has enjoyed an executive career in both the airline and nonprofit industries for over 40 years. Throughout her 25-year nonprofit career, she provided leadership to 5 youth-serving organizations, including serving as executive director of A Season for Nonviolence, the nonprofit organization founded by her friend and mentor, Arun Gandhi, 5th grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, as well as other organizations. She has a bachelor's degree in organizational management from Colorado Christian University, a master's in conflict resolution from the University of Denver, and a PhD in conflict resolution and management from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She is a delight, and she and her husband Wayne live here in Dunedin, and 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren who reside, the daughters and grandchildren in Tampa and Sarasota and Denver. But please, if you would, join me in welcoming Dr. Robin Rose.
Thank you all so much. It is such an honor for me to be here with a Rotary Club today. I have a long association with Rotary as a nonprofit CEO. I have received grants for my nonprofits from every market from Rotary that I've ever been in. And I particularly am, what's the word I'm looking for, just so in love with the fact that Rotary is got such a big commitment to peace as well. So just such a joy to be here to share a little bit about what I learned from my time working for Arun Gandhi. David is my flipper switcher today, so it's a team effort. Can we go to the next one? Thank you. So I left the aviation world to become the first CEO of Arun's nonprofit organization called A Season for Nonviolence. It was founded to acknowledge the bookends of the deaths of Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi. So we're coming to the end of this year's A Season for Nonviolence. It's a 64-day period where people all over the world look at how they might contribute to violence that we see in the world. And it's also a time where communities have peace projects as well. So it's a time of introspection as well as a time for doing. So I only have 15 minutes here today. So as I was thinking about this, I'm thinking, how on earth am I going to talk about what I learned from Arun, who I worked with for 30 years. He's the topic of my doctoral dissertation in 15 minutes. So I'm going to give you the highlights of the things that I consistently heard from him as he talked around the world to youth groups and to adults as well. So 3 main things. The first one that I think is the most important one, and the reason I say that is because whenever I do speaking, people are always saying, well, how do we get peace in the world? By the way, if you're here to hear that from me today, I don't have that answer. So, but how can there be peace in the world? And so the question is usually very externally focused. So how can the military get peace in the world? How can this organization get peace in the world? So it's all about what somebody else can do. But one of the main things that Arun taught me is that peace in the world is an inside job, and it begins with each of us. So Arun likes to tell people, he died a couple of years ago, that people are like an iceberg. So you see the tip of the iceberg, and so the tip of the iceberg is what we can all agree that we can all see, right? So we see that in the water, but it's also the behaviors, the things that we see that people do. We don't know why they're doing them, but it's the thing that we can all agree on, the behaviors, the actions, the things that we hear. That's the tip of the iceberg that we see in our world. But as you know, the majority of that iceberg is way below the surface. And so one of the messages that Arun always gave is the stuff that lies within us. So think of our brains, everything inside of us is just like an iceberg. So it's where our thoughts, it's where our emotions, it's where our feelings live. It's where we think about in our thoughts about other people, who we like, who we shouldn't like, etc. It is that place where bias and prejudice all originates, right? So Arun liked to say that what we see happening outside of us, actions and words are actually created twice, either consciously or unconsciously. And that is that we will react from what we are thinking about, what we've learned about, what we've been taught about, and we see that expressed as that tip of the iceberg. Does that make sense? So I was always so happy, you know, in the 21st century when our neurology, our science started really figuring out the importance of the brain and how the brain really does help to explain all the things that we're seeing in the world. So if you see someone that is angry or beating up on someone, you would have to be thinking, so I wonder what that person is thinking about, that person is making those choices. So Arun likes to say, if we want to stop the violence we see in the world every day, we must remove the inner fuel supply. So what does that mean? I grew up as in the early 1950s in the South, in North Carolina. Lots of messages in the South, in North Carolina in the 1950s about the other. You know, it was about race, it was about color, it was about all of those things. And I remember as a teenager challenging my parents, my grandparents about some of the things that had been handed down to me in my generation about who was more preference. And I remember saying, well, I just don't agree with that. I just don't believe that. And often was told, well, that's just how the world works. That's what you just need to believe. So, you know, the things that Arun was talking about is that we all have to challenge the way that we think, the things we hand down to the generations that are causing us to treat people in a certain way. So all of that lives below the surface really has an influence and an impact on the things that we see out in the world. So lesson number 2, we must each submit to a frequent process of introspection to determine how we contribute to the violence we see in the world. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Arun Gandhi was beaten up twice as a child in South Africa, once for being too white and once for being too black. And if you can imagine growing up in a family whose grandfather was Mahatma Gandhi, you can imagine that the family system was very much around peace and nonviolence. So Arun, as a teenager, was very, very angry. And his parents were very worried about him. He was starting to say things like, I want eye for an eye justice. He wanted to hurt the people who had beaten him up so badly twice. So his parents sent him to live with Mahatma Gandhi. Now, the context for this is pretty interesting because Mahatma Gandhi at that time was busily working to gain India's freedom from the British. But nevertheless, 14-year-old Arun Gandhi went to live with his grandfather in India on the ashram. And every day, Mahatma Gandhi made him sit with him for an hour and journal all of the things that lived below the surface in him, that were guiding the way that or influencing the way that he wanted to treat other people, which was not his family system. So Arun liked to say, by the end of a month, I had wallpapered my room totally with all the things in my journal about the things, the anger, the thoughts that I was having around violence. And so I think often about the fact that we don't often spend that introspective time, because what I learned from Arun is that it's not our job for other people to get world peace and things for us. It has to start with every single one of us and the work that we have to do on ourselves that has that ripple effect into the world. So by our spending that time to really be thoughtful about things that we've been taught, about beliefs and feelings that we have, is critical to how we each show up in the world in peace. So I also learned from Arun that there are values associated with peace. And our values, as we all know, we all have family values, we have cultural values, we have country values, we have a lot of values that guide our behavior every single day. But Arun says, there are definite values that if we really want to have peace in our lives, peace in ourselves, and for that to ripple out, there are values that we really need to integrate in every fiber of our being that will guide our behavior. David? So the first one is really of non-judgment and acceptance of all people. Arun says that's really a core value of how we see the other person and how we are not in judgment for who they are or who they are not. The next value is around community and interconnection. In my master's degree, I was really interested in researching how non-Western cultures and indigenous cultures had processes around peaceful or spiritual conflict resolution, that their values of their religion really showed them how to resolve differences with others and how to think about other people. And one of the things that I love so much is that the Hawaiians think about like a net, like a fisherman's net, and that each one of us is a knot. And that net is connected by a lot of knots. So it's all around seeing ourselves connected with other people. And the research shows, not to get scholarly on you, but it is harder to hate or to be violent against someone else that you see yourself connected with. That's really true. If you see that you have something in common with somebody, it's a lot harder to be mean to them. Wouldn't you agree? So it's really about that interconnection. It's around seeking harmony and truth. So in some indigenous religions, that concept of harmony is that if there is conflict in a family, conflict in an organization, that the organization or the family system will fail if that conflict is not peaceably resolved sooner rather than later. And so it really is looking for those opportunities to resolve our differences with others in ways that are more harmonious than violent. And I see that. I do a lot of this work with kids. And I tell you, from what a lot of kids learn in our media today, they don't care, a lot of them don't care too much about harmony. It is really like Arun felt, that eye for an eye justice. So really accepting that lens of that, trying to resolve our differences in a harmonious way with others is important. And also one of your 4 core is around finding the truth. So making sure you're always in that truth. Fairness and equal justice and love and forgiveness are all of these are core values of peace and nonviolence. Trying to find those ways to not only love ourselves, but to love other people. And forgiveness, that's David's market, so I'm going to let you, that's his wheelhouse, but definitely a key component of the values of peace. So I love this quote by Mahatma Gandhi, and that is, our greatest ability as humans is not to change the world, but to change ourselves. And that requires daily action. That requires daily introspection. That requires a value system that might look or feel a little bit different than how each of us might have grown up. But it is a pathway to peace that begins with us, that absolutely has that ripple effect into our world, into our homes, into our communities, into our businesses. As a nonprofit CEO for many, many years, I used harmonious methods of conflict resolution to resolve differences and disputes within my employees. And let me tell you what a difference that made in my workplace, as opposed to litigation and HR policies that were more punitive than are around respect. So it is a daily job. I'm not perfect at it. I might have had 30 years with Arun, and when I was with him a lot of time, but this is something I choose to work on every single day. So that is the 3 things that I learned from Arun on speed dial. And I really appreciate your time, because the world really is changed by all of our examples and how we show up and how we live our lives in the world. So thank you so much for your time. And now we take some questions. I think I've got a few minutes left. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Where were you visiting him during this?
So, I'm sorry. So I think I hear your question. Where was Arun? So a season for nonviolence was headquartered in Denver, and so I was in Denver at that time, and I was getting my master's at that time. So that's where I first met Arun and got the job and worked for him. Since that time, he spent his whole life furthering his grandfather's work. So he had a nonprofit Peace and Nonviolence Center in Rochester, New York, as well as in Memphis, Tennessee, both at several universities. So that's where I did a lot of work with him. But Arun and I, post-Columbine, which is when I met him and took that job, we did several peace conferences for youth and for adults in Denver at that time, because that was a really hard time with Columbine. So we did a lot of that work, but we went all over the world speaking. Well, he spoke, I learned. Sometimes I got to speak, but everybody wanted to hear him. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so so it's not a quick answer. So the question is, how do you resolve conflicts peacefully in the workplace? So first of all, I think it's a mental work, it's a framework that we come from first, that people are our assets, we want to catch people doing things good and then intervening when things go awry. I think it is language that we use, how we talk to people that's not punitive. And I think that's really important. Please don't anybody hear me say that I don't think you don't need HR policies, because you do, because things when things go bad, you know, even as peacefully as you try to resolve differences, at the end of the day, you know, people may not take that chance, you know, and keep offending. So I think it's around the mental and then I think it's about helping people as much as we possibly can without, you know, to succeed. And it's around the language that we use. And truthfully, I rewrote a lot when I became CEO, and we wrote a lot of HR policies to make them more employee friendly, but with accountability. So I think that's the big thing. And we also took our problems, and I don't have time to talk about this today, but we took our issues, even if that was quote unquote discipline, to the peace table. So we set some intention as we came to talk to one another about things that were not right, but we took them to the peace table. And just by using that language, it also really helped how we resolved the differences and how we spoke to one another out of respect, right? Even when the times that I had to terminate somebody, you know, I could do that in a language that was respectful. You're welcome. Yes. How does self-defense fit into this framework? So I'm going to give you a really short answer because I interviewed Arun in my doctoral dissertation about what he had learned, the evolving definition of nonviolence and peace as his grandfather and Arun came to understand it. And many people thought that Arun and Mahatma Gandhi were talking about the fact that, you know, you couldn't, if somebody was attacking you, you couldn't defend yourself. And Arun said, no, that's not the case, because, you know, if you're being attacked or something, you are going to have to do something to defend yourself. So it was not passive in any way at all. But I think the big part of this is that where you start, do you start using violence, you know, from the get-go without having conversations? No, you don't. You know, you use that as a last resort, is what Arun said. Yes. Yes. So every year, a season for nonviolence is opened on the floor of the United Nations. So it acknowledges the fact that this is the 64-day window, and it is around, you know, the work that we all individually need to do, and then the work we can do together as far as better understanding peace, showing up as peace, etc. So yes. All right. Thank you.
We'll let you actually eat your lunch now. But Robin, again, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing that with us.